You may not know that Ronald McDonald's big purple pal Grimace was once named Evil Grimace, as he roamed around McDonaldland hoarding milkshakes and other beverages before taking on a more friendly demeanor. Here's the dark truth behind this creepy character. If you grew up in the 70s, 80s, or early 90s, you most certainly remember the animated characters that meant going to McDonald's was about so much more than just chowing down on burgers and fries. Ronald McDonald was easily the most recognizable in this crew, but he also had a trippy entourage alongside him. His compatriots included a politician and a cop with hamburgers for heads, a striped suit-wearing convict, and a four-armed purple blob named the Evil Grimace. Collectively, they were known as the inhabitants of McDonaldland, a made-up universe populated by fast food mascots and kids hungry for milkshakes. This fantasy world was the cornerstone of McDonald's advertising for decades. It was the brainchild of the ad agency Needham, Harper & Steers. In addition to filling Happy Meals and TV airtime, they were also featured in McDonald's PlayPlaces, where kids could crawl in and out of the characters to burn off some of that French fry energy. The campaign wasn't without its hitches, though, as it eventually ran into some legal trouble and other controversies. Even a marketing juggernaut that can convince kids that prefab hamburgers are better than fresh ones can still be prone to mistakes. And one of those mistakes was the four-armed Evil Grimace. As former McDonald's creative officer Roy Burgold wrote in QSR magazine in 2012, the original Grimace was scaly, mean-looking, had four arms, and had no charm whatsoever. He scared kids. We changed him to a soft, plush, two-armed blob of a sweetheart who only wanted McDonald's milkshakes and to hang out with Ronald. Evil Grimace was obsessed with stealing milkshakes from children. If you're an adult, you might find that darkly funny. But when you were a little kid, you might have actually believed that your frozen treat would be stolen by a four-armed purple blob. The historical record has not been kind to Evil Grimace. Business Insider dubbed him a total failure, while the Think Tank YouTube channel made an astute point in a 2016 video by noting, they realized that in a story, you have heroes and villains, but in ads, you don't necessarily want people to be scared of being killed by a monster when they go to your place. First impressions really are a big deal, and the first impression we get in one particular commercial of four-armed Evil Grimace is a scene of him standing in a dark cave, surrounded by McDonald's cups, asking the camera,
Where's the Coke?
If this were a person that you were meeting for the first time, you would probably immediately delete his number from your phone and avoid him in social situations at all costs. But in McDonaldland, this first impression is a reason to invent a fake beauty contest to lure this Coke-hoarding monster out of his cave, and then take all the Coke back while he's gone. Actually, now that we think about it, this scheme might work in real life as well. The entire point to this story is that in addition to stealing milkshakes, Evil Grimace was also a Coke fiend, which created gloomy days in McDonaldland. They were so gloomy, in fact, that the first scene of this ad features a couple of kids sitting in a field of hamburgers with Ronald McDonald, whining about how they have no Cokes and no shakes. And by the tone of their voices, it sounds like they've lost their entire will to live.
No Coke, no shakes.
Evil Grimace wasn't the most intelligent citizen of McDonaldland. Case in point, in most of the commercials he appeared in, he was duped by a giant clown with simple disguises. In one of them, Ronald McDonald throws on a hat that says mailman and puts a bag of letters on his shoulder, thereby posing as a mail carrier to deliver Grimace a fake letter inviting him to participate in a beauty contest. You might protest that that's a federal crime, but in McDonaldland, it's just a crafty method to get your triple thick shakes and ice-cold Coca-Cola back to McDonald's. Not one to learn from his mistakes, Evil Grimace is again bamboozled in another ad when Ronald spots him absconding with four arms full of Coke and milkshakes. The clown throws on a beret and a pair of oversized sunglasses, grabs a fake movie camera, and follows Grimace to Filet-O-Fish Lake. He then convinces Grimace to pose for some shots, getting him to slowly back up before falling into the water. You might think that Ronald should now be tried for attempting to kill Evil Grimace, but in McDonaldland, it's perfectly justifiable to behave this way if you're rescuing milkshakes and fountain soda. Although most of us probably remember Grimace as purple, he was also known for becoming green on March 17th. This was at least the case for the lone St. Patrick's Day that four-armed Evil Grimace was with us when he starred in a Shamrock-themed commercial. In the ad, a couple of concerned children notice that Grimace is turning green and ask him why his hands and feet are severely discolored. Grimace, who looks a little like a scientific demonstration on the progressive effects of frostbite, then tells the kids that he often turns green this time of year, thanks to McDonald's Shamrock Shakes. The little girl asks Grimace if she can have one, as she's never had a green shake before, to which Grimace replies that she sure can. For a brief moment, it appears that the four-armed villain will actually show some compassion for the kids, who seemed so concerned for his health. But he then reveals his true colors when instead of handing her a triple-thick Shamrock Shake, he instead shakes her hand and yells,
"Sure, shake!"
Despite the evil moniker, the original four-armed version of Grimace wasn't so much evil as he was just kind of dumb and hungry. In a way, he was like a dog who rips the Christmas roast off the counter while it's defrosting. He's not trying to ruin Christmas. He's just looking for some lunch. This is clear in the movie director commercial, in which Grimace repeatedly says how thirsty he is. And this is ostensibly why he's running off with 4 armloads of beverages. Evil Grimace is a fairly big guy after all, so he probably needs more hydration than the average 7-year-old. Similarly, when he's spotted turning green from Shamrock Shakes, the poor dumb oaf doesn't even realize that his body is changing color until the kids tell him. And perhaps he actually did think that the little girl was asking to shake his hand instead of asking for a Shamrock Shake, as his brain was both frozen and addled with sugar. In that sense, he wasn't evil. He was just too dumb to know any better. Though this personality trait was never publicly cited as a reason for his name change, we can't help but think McDonald's ultimately figured out that they got the evil part wrong. Once upon a time, a playground at McDonald's was as much a part of the Golden Arches experience as a burger and a Happy Meal toy. The McDonaldland PlayPlace debuted in 1972 at the Illinois State Fair and expanded to McDonald's locations nationwide, with everything from Officer Big Mac climbing structures to Captain Crook spiral slides. The pieces were designed by Don Amend, who was previously a set designer at Disney before working for McDonald's. By the early 90s, the playgrounds branched off into an independent concept called Leaps and Bounds, an indoor play center where parents paid $4.95 to let their kids immerse themselves in McDonaldland. There's no evidence of Evil Grimace at Leaps and Bounds, but he was part of the original lineup that debuted at the Illinois State Fair. The playscapes included the Evil Grimace Bounce and Bend, a 10-foot structure on which children could hold onto the bars while the cage shook back and forth. According to a post on the Dinosaurs and Dracula blog, the Bounce and Bend attraction was still at some McDonald's restaurants into the 1980s. The McDonaldland characters were naturally enough turned into toys, and most of the original ones featured posable limbs and changeable cloth clothes. Many also included accessories, like Officer Big Mac's badge and Mayor McCheese's sash. They also had levers in their backs that allowed kids to move their heads in 4 directions. Alas, this wasn't the case with the Evil Grimace toy, as his design lent itself more readily to cuddling. Its innards were similar to the material found inside a beanbag, and it was covered in purple fur to make him especially cuddly. Grimace wasn't winning any action figure fights, but he was perfect for sleeping next to in bed. If you want one of these cuddly Evil Grimace dolls now, that's probably going to set you back a pretty penny. A recent asking price on eBay for a rare Comic-Con exclusive stuffed 4-armed Evil Grimace that's still in the box was $129.99. But hey, free shipping was available. Who's to say if it was actually worth that much, but either way, it would definitely be a nice conversation piece to have sitting on your living room sofa. And it's way cooler than an enamel pin, which you can find on eBay or Etsy for about $15. Though there are no public records of parents avoiding the Golden Arches because of the imminent threat of a 4-armed monster, in 1972, McDonald's decided to figuratively amputate 2 of Evil Grimace's arms. Also removed was the evil part of his name, as he henceforth became known as simply Grimace. He retained the dopey persona, as he still began each sentence with a duh, and maintained his unhealthy obsession with milkshakes. As Grimace went from foil to cartoon clown hanger-on and gave up stealing from kids, he turned into Ronald's best friend and got all the Coke and shakes he could by hanging out with a guy who had them in abundance. His story is actually a decent life lesson, as Grimace's new lifestyle was certainly better than pursuing a life of crime. Also, we'd argue that a 2-armed purple blob is much more aesthetically pleasing than a 4-armed monster.
Grimace, we're late! But the dinner's great! Wait!
Beginning in 1971, the McDonaldland characters were the subject of a major lawsuit, as the creators of the children's TV show, H.R. Pufnstuf, alleged that McDonald's stole many of their characters for their campaign. According to the lawsuit, McDonald's approached the show's creators, Sid and Marty Krofft, about collaborating on a campaign and also recruited former H.R. Pufnstuf employees to help design McDonaldland. Among the disputed characters was Evil Grimace, who was a little too close to a Pufnstuf character named Seymour Spider for the Kroffts' liking. McDonald's ultimately lost the lawsuit after 6 years of litigation, and the company was ordered to pay over $1 million in damages. McDonald's was also ordered to cease production of some of the McDonaldland characters, although Grimace survived that initial purge and lived on in what was left of McDonaldland until 2003, when the entire campaign was scrapped. That was the year that McDonald's began its I'm Lovin' It campaign and switched the target of its marketing more towards adults than children. This marked a significant shift in society's collective attitude toward advertising to children, as groups like Corporate Accountability International began pressuring McDonald's to phase out its trademark clown, questioning the ethics of selling unhealthy food to kids. Despite that, you'll still see Grimace pop up occasionally, like he did in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, or in a 2009 McDonald's tie-in ad for the animated movies Monsters vs. Aliens. Though the evil incarnation may be gone forever, the two-armed good Grimace just might last forever.
Will Ronald find Grimace? Or is this
the end of the road?
Hi, Ronald!
Grimace, what are you doing?
Hanging around till dinner time.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about your favorite fast food chains are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.